The deep space monitoring station on Luna was quiet except for the steady hum of computers. Lisa Parker sat at her console, watching the endless stream of data from distant stars. She had been doing this job for 3 years, and nothing exciting ever happened. Most days she just recorded background radiation and cosmic dust. Then her screen lit up with something different. A signal was coming from deep space, but it was not natural. The patterns were too organized, too purposeful. Lisa leaned forward and started recording everything. Her hands shook as she realized what she was seeing. This was the first alien message ever received by humanity. The signal used mathematical patterns that any intelligent species would understand. Prime numbers, geometric sequences, and basic physics formulas. But mixed in with the math was something else. The computer's translation program started working, slowly turning the alien symbols into English words. "Help us," the message said. "We are dying. Please help us." Lisa called her supervisor immediately. Within an hour, Commander Jake Morrison was standing behind her chair, reading the translated message over and over again. The full transmission was much longer, but the meaning was clear. An alien civilization was being destroyed by another alien race, and they were asking Earth for help. "Are you sure this is real?" Morrison asked. "The signal is coming from 47 light-years away," Lisa replied. "No human technology could send this. It has to be aliens." Morrison picked up his secure phone and called Washington. Within 6 hours, the most important people in the world were gathering for an emergency meeting. Admiral William Hayes sat at the head of the long table in the Pentagon's secure conference room. Around him were the leaders of Earth's military forces and top scientists. General Patricia Collins from the Army looked tired from flying in from Germany. Admiral Robert Chen had come straight from the Pacific Fleet. Dr. Kevin Anderson, the world's leading expert on the possibility of alien life, kept reading the translated message. "Let me make sure I understand this," Hayes said. "Aliens are talking to us for the first time in human history, and they want our help in a war." "That's correct, sir," Dr. Anderson replied. "The Xantharian Confederation is made up of 7 different alien species. They're being attacked by something called the Korthak Empire. According to this message, the Korthak have already destroyed 3 of their worlds and enslaved millions of their people." General Collins frowned. "How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Maybe these Xantharians are the bad guys and they're trying to get us involved in their war." "We don't know," Admiral Chen admitted. "But if this message is real, we're talking about genocide on a scale we can barely imagine. Entire planets being destroyed." Dr. Anderson pulled up another part of the message on the big screen. "There's something else. They found us by looking through old galactic databases. Earth is listed as a Class 12 death world. That's the highest danger rating they have. Most alien species won't even go near planets like ours." "What makes Earth so dangerous to them?" Hayes asked. "Everything," Anderson replied. "Our gravity is too strong. Our atmosphere is poisonous to most life forms. We have extreme weather, active volcanoes, and dangerous animals, but most importantly, we evolved to survive all of that. To them, we're probably the scariest thing in the galaxy." The debate went on for hours. Some people argued that humanity wasn't ready for contact with alien civilizations. Others said they had a moral duty to help if they could. Finally, President Linda Thompson joined the meeting by video call. "I've been briefing the UN Security Council," she said. "Every major nation agrees that we need to learn more before making any decisions. I'm authorizing a first contact mission." 2 weeks later, the alien delegation arrived at Luna Station. Ambassador Veltar and 3 other Xantharians came in a small ship that looked like it was made of crystal and light. Dr. Susan Wright, the station's chief medical officer, watched in amazement as the aliens walked through the airlock. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each Xantharian stood 8 feet tall, but moved like they weighed almost nothing. Their bodies seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors when they spoke. They communicated through musical sounds that the translation computers turned into words. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Veltar said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. We know that first contact must be frightening for your species. Captain Alex Turner, who had been chosen to lead the human side of the meeting, almost laughed. You're the ones who should be scared. According to your own records, we're from a death world. Feltar's crystal body turned a deep blue color. Yes, we know. That is why we came to you. The Korthak Empire has conquered 12 star systems. Their fleets number in the thousands. They are larger and stronger than us. But you come from a world that would kill us in minutes. Perhaps you are strong enough to fight them. The negotiations took 3 days. The Xantharians shared everything they knew about the Korthak Empire. The enemy aliens were massive reptilian creatures who believed that might made right. They conquered other species not for resources or territory, but because their religion told them that the strong should rule the weak. They gave us one chance to surrender, Feltar explained. When we refused, they began destroying our colonies, one by one. They don't just kill us quickly, they enjoy making us suffer. Captain Turner felt sick as he watched videos of Korthak attacks. Entire cities burned while alien civilians tried to escape. Children separated from their parents. Families destroyed by creatures who seemed to take pleasure in causing pain. We'll help you, Turner said finally. But we need to see what we're up against first. The USS Independence launched 1 week later. It was humanity's most advanced starship, built with technology that was still experimental. Turner's crew included Tactical Officer Maria Santos, Engineer Danny Murphy, and pilot Carol Davis. They were about to become the first humans to travel to another star system. The journey to Xantharian space took 2 months. When they arrived, they found a war zone. Burning ships drifted in space around a planet that had once been home to 50 million Xantharians. Now it was a dead rock, its atmosphere poisoned and its cities in ruins. Lieutenant Frank Rodriguez, the ship's intelligence officer, documented everything they saw. Korthak prison ships held thousands of alien slaves. Mining operations stripped entire moons of their resources. Worst of all, they found evidence that the Korthak were using Xantharian civilians for medical experiments. My God, Turner whispered as he watched the footage. They're not just conquering them, they're torturing them for fun. The USS Independence returned to Earth with proof of the Korthak Empire's crimes. When the videos were shown to world leaders, the reaction was immediate and angry. Every major news network broadcast the images of alien genocide. Within hours, protests began in every major city on Earth. People who had never agreed on anything before were united in their outrage. Signs reading "Save the Xantharians" appeared in dozens of languages. Religious leaders called for action. Even children drew pictures of humans helping the crystal aliens. President Thompson called another emergency session of the UN. This time, there was no debate. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not stand by and watch genocide happen, even if the victims lived 47 light-years away. The war preparations began immediately. The Korthak Empire made their biggest mistake 3 weeks after the USS Independence returned to Earth. War leader Krextal intercepted human radio transmissions and decided that these new aliens were weak, like all the others. The massive reptilian commander stood over 12 feet tall and weighed as much as a small car. His thick scales had stopped bullets and energy weapons for decades. Another prey species from a poisonous world. Krextal growled to his officers aboard the warship Bone. Crusher. They hide on their little planet while real warriors conquer the galaxy. The Korthak sent their ultimatum on every frequency they could find. The message was simple and brutal. Earth had 30 days to surrender all Xantharian refugees and submit to Korthak rule. If they refused, the Empire would send fleets to burn their world just like all the others. President Lyndon Thompson read the alien message in the Oval Office, surrounded by her top advisors. Secretary of Defense Charles Brown looked angry enough to break furniture. General Nancy Foster from Space Command was already planning military responses, but it was the president who spoke first. They think they can threaten Earth? Thompson said quietly. They have no idea what they just did. The emergency session of the United Nations was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in New York. Outside, millions of protesters filled the streets. They carried signs demanding war against the Korthak Empire. For the first time since World War II, the entire human race was united against a common enemy. Thompson stood at the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. The Korthak Empire has given us an ultimatum. They want us to abandon the Xantharians to genocide, or they will attack Earth. I have one question for this assembly. What is our answer? The vote was unanimous. Not one nation voted to surrender. Not one representative suggested negotiation. The Korthak had made the mistake of threatening humanity's homeworld, and now they would learn why Earth was classified as a death world. Admiral Hayes moved faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours of the UN vote, every military base on Earth was buzzing with activity. The shipyards around Luna Station worked around the clock to finish new warships. The USS Defiance and USS Retribution, Earth's newest dreadnoughts, were rushed into service months ahead of schedule. Captain Turner was promoted to admiral and given command of the largest fleet in human history. His flagship was the USS Independence, but now he had 50 other warships under his command. Commander Rachel Green became his flag captain, while Colonel Marcus Bell prepared 2,000 Marines for the First Interstellar War. Dr. Kevin Anderson made a discovery that changed everything. While studying Xantharian biology, he realized just how fragile the crystal aliens really were. Their homeworld had gravity only 1/3 as strong as Earth's. Their atmosphere was so thin that humans would need breathing equipment to survive. No wonder the Korthak conquered them so easily, Anderson explained to the military leaders. The Xantharians are physically delicate. What we consider normal conditions would probably kill them. This revelation helped the human commanders understand their advantages. Earth's heavy gravity had made humans incredibly strong by galactic standards. The poisonous atmosphere that most aliens feared had given humans powerful lungs and efficient circulatory systems. Even Earth's dangerous weather had taught humans to adapt quickly to changing conditions. Major Helen Parker, the fleet's intelligence officer, briefed Admiral Turner on Korthak military capabilities. Their ships were massive and heavily armed, but they were also slow and predictable. The reptilian aliens relied on brute force tactics that had worked against every other species they had encountered. They have about 3,000 warships, Parker reported. Each one is twice the size of our largest dreadnought. But their weapons are old-fashioned and their tactics haven't changed in centuries. They just charge straight at the enemy and try to smash them. Engineer Tony Davis worked with Xantharian scientists to upgrade human weapons with alien shield technology. Dr. Lisa Cooper studied Korthak battle recordings and developed new tactics based on human advantages. Speed, adaptability, and creative thinking would be humanity's greatest weapons. The human fleet departed Earth amid the largest celebration in human history. Every major city held parades. Children waved flags and drew pictures of human spaceships defeating alien monsters. For the first time in centuries, the entire human race felt like they were part of something bigger than their individual nations. The journey to Xantharian space took 6 weeks. During the trip, Admiral Turner drilled his crews constantly. They practiced formations that no other species had ever tried. Human pilots learned to fly in patterns that would confuse alien sensors. Gunners trained to hit targets while performing maneuvers that would make most aliens sick. The first contact between human and Korthak forces happened at the edge of Xantharian space. Admiral Turner's reconnaissance squadron encountered a Korthak patrol fleet near a dead star system. The alien ships were enormous, looking like flying fortresses covered in weapons and armor. The Korthak opened fire immediately without any attempt at communication. War leader Vex Moore, commanding the patrol fleet, expected to destroy these unknown aliens quickly. His ships had crushed the Xantharian fleet in 3 major battles. These new enemies couldn't be any different. Captain Jennifer Lewis commanded the destroyer USS Vanguard in humanity's first space battle. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Paul Anderson, coordinated with the other human ships as they spread out in a formation the Korthak had never seen before. The aliens fired massive energy, beams that could destroy most ships with a single hit. But the human vessels moved like nothing the Korthak had ever encountered. They twisted and spun through space, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Their return fire was precise and devastating, targeting weak points in Korthak armor that no other species had been smart enough to find. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, 5 Korthak warships were destroyed and 3 more were badly damaged. The human fleet hadn't lost a single ship. War leader Vexmore barely escaped in his crippled flagship, carrying news that would terrify the entire Korthak Empire. "What are these creatures?" Vexmore reported to High Command. "They move like predators from the deepest nightmares. Their ships dance through space while ours lumber like wounded beasts. And their weapons? They seem to know exactly where to hit us for maximum damage." The news of the first battle spread quickly through both fleets. The Xantharians couldn't believe that someone had actually defeated the Korthak in open combat. Ambassador Veltar watched recordings of the battle and his crystal body glowed with amazement. "Your species fights like nothing we have ever seen," he told Admiral Turner. "You move with the speed of light and strike with the force of stars. The Korthak call you Deathworld demons." Turner smiled grimly. "We haven't even started fighting yet." The Korthak Empire began mobilizing their full military might. War leader Krextal called for reinforcements from across their territory. Never before had any species resisted them successfully. These humans would have to be crushed completely to maintain Korthak dominance. But deep in the Empire, subject species began to whisper about the aliens who had defeated their masters. Races that had been conquered decades ago started to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone was finally strong enough to free them from Korthak rule. Admiral Turner received intelligence reports about growing unrest in Korthak territory. Dr. Cooper analyzed the data and made a startling recommendation. "We shouldn't just fight the Korthak," she told Turner. "We should liberate every species they've conquered, turn their empire against them." Turner nodded slowly. The Korthak wanted a war, but they were going to get something much worse. They were going to get a revolution led by creatures from a death world who didn't know the meaning of surrender. The Korthak Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear for over 200 years. No species had ever successfully resisted their conquest. But now, war leader Krextal found himself facing reports that made no sense. Human forces were not just defending themselves. They were attacking Korthak territory with a fury that defied all logic. "Impossible," Krextal roared as he read the latest battle reports. "These Deathworlders are supposed to be defending the Crystal Weaklings. Why are they attacking our supply bases?" Admiral Turner had implemented a strategy that shocked everyone, including his own officers. Instead of protecting Xantharian worlds, human forces launched direct strikes deep into Korthak space. Captain Stephen Parker led lightning raids with his fast attack squadron, hitting enemy supply convoys and communication stations. "We're not going to play defense," Turner explained to his staff. "The Korthak expect us to sit and wait for them to attack. Instead, we're going to hit them where they don't expect it." Commander Laura Martinez coordinated the hit-and-run operations from the USS Swift Strike. Her ship could travel faster than any Korthak vessel, appearing out of nowhere, to destroy enemy installations before vanishing back into deep space. The reptilian aliens had never faced an enemy that moved so quickly and struck so precisely. The psychological effect on Korthak forces was devastating. For generations, they had been the hunters. Now they felt like prey being stalked by invisible predators. Korthak commanders began requesting additional guards for their bases. Supply ships demanded military escorts. The entire empire started looking over its shoulder, waiting for the next human attack. The Xantharians watched human combat tactics with amazement. Ambassador Veltar observed human marines in action during the defense of colony world Xerion 7. Sergeant Amy Johnson led her squad through conditions that would have killed most alien species. The planet's atmosphere was filled with toxic gases, but the humans just put on breathing masks and kept fighting. "Your people are incredible," Veltar told Dr. Susan Wright as they watched the battle from orbit. "Our soldiers need environmental suits and life support systems just to survive on most worlds. Your Marines fight effectively almost anywhere." Corporal Rick Davis demonstrated exactly what the ambassador meant. During the battle for Xerion 7, Davis was shot 3 times by Korthak energy weapons. Any Xantharian would have died instantly from such wounds. Davis wrapped bandages around the injuries and kept fighting for 6 more hours until reinforcements arrived. Dr. Wright had been studying human combat effectiveness since the war began. Her research revealed something that amazed even her. Human bodies produced chemicals during combat that allowed them to ignore pain and exhaustion. Adrenaline and other natural drugs let human soldiers function with injuries that would incapacitate any other known species. Major Tom Bradley proved this during the siege of the mining station at Kepler 442. A Korthak energy blast nearly severed his left arm, but Bradley continued leading his troops for the entire day-long battle. He didn't seek medical treatment until after the station was secured and all his soldiers were safe. The turning point came when Colonel Marcus Bell's Marines captured a Korthak command ship intact. The assault was brutal and quick. Human soldiers stormed through the massive alien vessel, overwhelming defenders who had never faced anything like them. The Korthak crew fought desperately, but they were no match for humans in close combat. Intelligence officer Captain Diana Foster made a discovery aboard the captured ship that changed everything. The Korthak Empire wasn't as united as it appeared. Hidden in their computer files were records of dozens of conquered species, many of whom were secretly helping human forces. The Empire is held together by fear and religious propaganda, Foster reported to Admiral Turner. But their subject races hate them. Many are already providing us with intelligence about Korthak movements. General Patricia Collins developed a new strategy based on this information. Instead of simply defeating Korthak military forces, human troops began liberating conquered worlds and exposing the Empire's weaknesses. Commander Betty Anderson led humanitarian missions that provided medical aid and food to liberated populations. The effect was electric. Species that had been enslaved for decades suddenly saw hope for the first time. Captain Roger Wilson coordinated with rebel movements across Korthak territory, providing weapons and training to freedom fighters who had given up long ago. On the industrial world of Vega Prime, human forces liberated over 10 million alien slaves. The creatures were from dozen different species, all working in terrible conditions to produce weapons for the Korthak war machine. When human marines broke down the prison gates, many of the slaves couldn't believe they were finally free. "Are you really going to fight the Korthak?" asked a small furry alien who identified himself as Zix from the Talarian Republic. His people had been conquered 15 years earlier. "Everyone knows the Korthak cannot be defeated." Sergeant Johnson smiled and patted the little alien on the head. "Kid, we're not just going to fight them. We're going to tear their whole empire apart." Word spread quickly through the slave populations. The humans weren't just another conquering species. They were liberators who actually cared about freeing the oppressed. Rebel movements that had been crushed years ago began to reorganize. Sabotage operations increased across Korthak territory. War leader Krextal found himself fighting a war on hundreds of different fronts. Human forces struck without warning, liberated entire worlds, and disappeared before Korthak reinforcements could arrive. Even worse, the subject species were rising up everywhere, inspired by human victories. "These Deathworlders fight like demons," complained war leader Nexaval during a command meeting. "They ignore wounds that would kill our best warriors. They never retreat even when outnumbered. And their tactics make no sense. How can we fight an enemy that refuses to follow the rules of war?" The Korthak military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and rigid formations. They had used the same strategies for centuries because they always worked. But humans fought in ways that no other species had ever tried. They used speed instead of strength, intelligence instead of brute force, and coordination instead of individual heroics. Captain Jennifer Lewis, now commanding the heavy cruiser USS Thunder, demonstrated human tactical flexibility during the Battle of the Red Nebula. Her ship was outnumbered 5-1 by Korthak vessels, but Lewis used the nebula's gas clouds to hide her movements. She struck from different angles, making the enemy think they were fighting multiple ships. The psychological warfare was just as effective as the physical battles. Human forces broadcast messages to Korthak troops, explaining that their empire was crumbling and their leaders were lying to them. Many young Korthak soldiers began to question whether their cause was just. Admiral Turner authorized Operation Shattered Crown, the largest human offensive yet attempted. The goal was not just to defeat the Korthak military, but to completely destroy their ability to threaten anyone ever again. The fleet that assembled for the operation included over 800 ships, including vessels from liberated worlds that had joined the human cause. Commander Sarah Wilson coordinated the massive logistics operation, keeping hundreds of ships, supplied with fuel, ammunition, and food across multiple star systems, was incredibly complex. But human organizational skills, developed through centuries of global warfare, proved superior to anything the galaxy had seen. Captain James Foster led the vanguard forces through enemy territory toward the Korthak home system. His squadron included ships from 6 different liberated species, all working together under human command. The sight of former slaves fighting alongside their liberators terrified Korthak defenders. As the human fleet approached Korthak Prime, war leader Krextal made his final preparations. The Empire's entire remaining fleet was gathered around their home world. Over 2,000 ships waited in defensive positions, ready for the battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. But Krextal knew in his heart that they had already lost. These humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had turned the Korthak Empire against itself, liberating the oppressed and inspiring rebellion wherever they went. The Deathworlders were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. The Battle of Korthak Prime began at dawn on the alien world below. Admiral Turner's massive fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system, facing the largest enemy force ever assembled. Over 2,000 Korthak warships waited in defensive formation around their home planet, ready for the final battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. War leader Krextal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Worldbreaker. The ship was 3 times larger than any human vessel, armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Around him, the combined might of the Korthak Empire prepared for what their leaders promised would be their greatest victory. "Today we crush these Deathworld demons," Krextal announced to his fleet. "They may have won battles through trickery and cowardice, but here they face the full power of the Empire. Here they will learn that the strong always defeat the weak." But Admiral Turner had no intention of fighting a traditional battle. As the human fleet approached, ships from dozens of liberated worlds joined the formation. Former Korthak slaves now fought alongside their human liberators, turning the Empire's own weapons against their former masters. The battle lasted 18 hours and became the stuff of legend throughout the galaxy. Human crews displayed the endurance and determination that had earned them their fearsome reputation. Captain Jennifer Lewis, commanding the heavy cruiser USS Thunderbolt, led the assault on the massive Korthak orbital fortresses surrounding the planet. "All weapons target their command center," Lewis ordered as enemy fire lit up space around her ship. Gunnery Officer Lieutenant Mike Cooper worked his controls with steady hands despite the chaos around them. Damage Control Chief Petty Officer Janet Thompson kept the ship running even as explosions rocked the hull. The Korthak fought desperately, but they were facing something they had never encountered before. Human ships moved through the battle like deadly dancers, coordinating their attacks with precision that amazed even their allies. Where Korthak vessels relied on brute force, humans used speed and intelligence. Commander Rachel Green coordinated the fleet's movements from the USS Independence. Her tactical displays showed the battle unfolding across the entire star system. Human squadrons struck key targets, while liberated alien forces engaged the main Korthak fleet. The Empire's rigid battle formations began to crumble under the coordinated assault. The turning point came when Colonel Marcus Bell's Marines captured the primary orbital defense station. The assault was led by Major Amy Johnson, whose troops had become legendary throughout the galaxy for their courage and skill. They fought through the station's corridors, overwhelming Korthak defenders who had never faced humans in close combat. "These creatures fight like wild animals," one surviving Korthak officer reported. "They ignore wounds that should kill them. They coordinate like a pack of predators. We cannot stop them." But the real victory wasn't won in space. As the battle raged above, rebellions erupted across the Korthak homeworld. Slave species that had been brought to the capital planet rose up against their masters. Human advisors like Captain Roger Wilson had been secretly organizing these revolts for months. The Korthak Empire didn't just lose the battle. It collapsed from within as the oppressed peoples they had conquered for centuries finally saw their chance for freedom. Entire Korthak military units found themselves fighting not just the human fleet, but their own former slaves. War leader Krextal watched his empire crumble around him. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His homeworld was in revolt. The other Korthak commanders were demanding his removal from command. In desperation, he made one final attempt to salvage his people's honor. "I challenge the human leader to single combat," Krextal broadcast on all frequencies. "Let the strongest warrior decide this war, as our ancestors did in the old days." Admiral Turner surprised everyone by accepting the challenge. He could have simply destroyed the remaining Korthak forces, but he wanted to minimize further bloodshed. The duel would be fought according to ancient Korthak tradition, with representatives from both sides watching. The combat took place on a small asteroid between the two fleets. Krextal stood over 12 feet tall and weighed 800 pounds. His reptilian hide was covered in scars from a lifetime of battles. He carried weapons that had killed dozens of enemy champions. Turner was half the alien's size and looked fragile by comparison. But as the two warriors circled each other, Krextal began to understand what made humans so dangerous. Turner moved with the grace of a predator, his eyes constantly watching for weaknesses. The fight lasted only minutes. Krextal relied on brute strength and intimidation, tactics that had worked against every other species. But Turner used speed, intelligence, and techniques developed on a world where everything was trying to kill you. When it was over, the mighty war leader lay defeated, and the Korthak Empire formally surrendered. The aftermath of the war transformed galactic civilization. Humanity was recognized as the dominant military power, but Admiral Turner shocked everyone by refusing to claim territory or demand tribute. Instead, humans established the Galactic Protection Alliance, dedicated to preventing future genocides and protecting smaller species from conquest. "We didn't come here to build an empire," Turner announced to the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds. "We came to stop one. The galaxy belongs to all of us, not just the strongest." Dr. Kevin Anderson led the effort to rehabilitate former Korthak worlds, helping liberated species rebuild their civilizations. Dr. Lisa Cooper worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies that benefited everyone. The knowledge sharing between species led to advances that none could have achieved alone. The Xantharians became humanity's closest allies and advocates throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar served as the first alien ambassador to Earth, helping other species understand that despite their fearsome reputation, humans were protectors, not conquerors. Captain Turner, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, oversaw the establishment of joint defense forces with representatives from dozens of species. The new alliance included former enemies who had learned to work together. Even some young Korthak joined the peacekeeping forces, inspired by human ideals of justice and protection. Commander Laura Martinez became the first human ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Council. Major Amy Johnson led the Interspecies Marine Corps, training soldiers from different worlds to work together. The same humans who had terrified the galaxy with their combat skills now taught others to defend themselves. Years passed, and the galaxy settled into an era of unprecedented peace. Trade flourished between worlds that had never communicated before. Scientific discoveries were shared freely. Art and culture spread from species to species, creating a rich tapestry of galactic civilization. The final chapter of the war came, to be written not in the history books but in the everyday lives of billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. On New Geneva Station, a massive space habitat near Earth, children from dozens of different species played together in parks designed for multiple types of life. Human peacekeepers watched over the station alongside their alien partners. Former enemies worked side by side, building a future none of them could have imagined when the war began. The site would have been impossible under Korthak rule, but it had become normal under human protection. Ambassador Veltar stood with Fleet Admiral Turner on the station's observation deck watching the children play. His crystal body glowed with contentment as he spoke. "Your people were asked for help," he said quietly. "Instead, you declared war on everything that was wrong with the galaxy. You turned a plea for rescue into a revolution for justice." Turner smiled as he watched a human child teaching a young Korthak how to play soccer. "We learned something important during this war. Our greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to help others become better than they were." The Deathworlders, who had once terrified the galaxy, had become its greatest hope for peace. They had proven that sometimes the best way to help someone is to declare war on everything that threatens them. And in doing so, they had accidentally created something beautiful, a galaxy where strength protected the weak instead of conquering them.